This
Do
conference
that
will now be recorded.
There it goes.
before I forget. These days I seem to be forgetting a lot. So, anyways, well, happy Wednesday to all of you out there in your home. I am really coming to you from the stay-at-home lounge today because I had an appointment this morning that sure thing, they didn't show up yet. Or actually, they did show up, but it didn't give me enough time to get to work. So I'm coming to you from our actually our bird nursery at our home. So all those things that you see on the back shelf there are baby birds being fed and under our care. So I'm in the bird nursery, coming to you from the bird nursery. So I wanted to just start out with you like I normally do and provide you with some statistics and some data. So as you know, we are really in the thick of this thing. You know, when I think back to March, when we went down on, went into lockdown on March 12th, I think it was, yeah, March, April, May, it was tough because we had minimal services and it seemed to be getting old. But I will tell you what, in the past 2 weeks, I just can't even begin to tell you the intensity, the stress, and the pressure that not only myself, but the leadership team and our frontline staff, quite frankly, are under. And I know that that is also being felt by you as well. So, you know, I want to start out with a message of hope of just, you know, let's just get through this thing. And hopefully the numbers will start to come down. I think local leaders are really trying to put into place, you know, the masks. They're shutting the beaches down for the weekend, for the July 4th weekend. And wow, when I look back and I think about New York and some of those other hot spots, and back in May, I was just feeling so incredibly blessed to be where we are, you know, and then here comes June and it just spread like wildfire. So, so in the state of Florida, according to the Department of Health, uh, the Department of Health data, hot off the press, we have 158,997 cases in the state of Florida with 3,550 deaths. In Martin County, we are over 2,000, pushing 2,100, and we are now up to 25 deaths. So this thing really has not slowed down for us whatsoever. So a couple of things tied to that. I have reported to you previously that we had a couple of positive employees. And then last weekend, I believe it was, I reported to you that we had that we have a positive resident. So, and the good news is that everyone, well, the employees that have tested positive, they're all asymptomatic. The resident, although doing well, has some challenges at times with her temperature spiking and so forth. That is why it is absolutely critical for you to inform Mary's department if you are having any symptoms. When we started talking to this individual disclosed that they started feeling sick, not sick, but having symptoms about 7 days prior to them actually coming forward and telling us that they were having, you know, spiked temperatures and so forth. So it's really, really important at the very first sign of any symptoms. You know, what I'm hearing is just really tired, scratchy throat, just overall malaise, feeling tired, diarrhea. The temperature starts to spike later. Anything like that, and we did put those signs and symptoms out both in the Newsweek, and then I did put it on the back of my letter, which was distributed on Sunday. So if you are going out and about, no matter where you're going to, it's really, really important that you continue to practice social distancing, wearing a mask, washing your hands. You know, through contact tracing, there is some thought that the individual resident who is COVID positive may have contracted this through one of many doctors that this individual had gone to the previous week. So it's really, really important that you evaluate whether or not you need to go to the doctors. And again, I would just continue to use Mary Summer as a sounding board to determine whether or not it's really medically essential. And, you know, I share that with you because it seems like every entity has put the cart before the horse. You know, with the testing, you know, we started opening up around us before we offered just regular testing to people. And I think that what we're seeing is a byproduct of putting the cart before the horse. So what I'm saying to you is that as we continue to grow in the number of cases in Martin County, and the exposure becomes greater and greater, and the risk becomes greater and greater, now is the time to really evaluate whether or not your doctor's appointment or where you are going is medically essential. And I think that if you think about that, then you know, hopefully we can, you know, continue to position ourselves where we don't have the growth rate in Sandhill Cove as is occurring outside. So a couple of other things I wanted to share with you. So we work very, very closely with the Department of Health. They have been just fantastic collaborators with us. They are more of they take more of an education perspective. And so our Director of Nursing, Marva Bennett Wilson, and Aaron have just a great, great relationship with them. And they came in last week. Now, naturally, when you have positive residents and positive employees, we have to report it to them, and then we have to provide them names that these individuals may have come in contact with. So we did that. And so then they came out and just looked at our healthcare center because we did have three positives in employees in the healthcare center, four, I think, actually. And so they wanted to just make sure that, you know, what we're doing in there is that we're on target to continue to provide care, and our practices meet the infection control prevention measures. I'm happy to tell you that we have no positive cases with our residents in Water's Edge, and that is huge, huge, huge. Why is it huge? One is because they are the most vulnerable people that we are serving on the campus, but two, with them not having, with no positive residents in Water's Edge, that tells me that our direct care staff, nurses and CNAs, are exercising the utmost prevention and a proper infection control measures. So we are continuing to test our residents in Water's Edge, and I'm just so very happy that there has been no positives with our residents. So kudos to our nurses staff and the leadership in Water's Edge to make sure that that continues to happen. So good report card from the Department of Health, but I will be honest with you. I mean, they gave us some really, what seems to be silly suggestions. For instance, you know, in the activities room over there, we do activities, and we have these paper turtles on the wall, and they made us take those down because the paper turtles, it could prompt somebody to touch them and then touch their face and then have this coronavirus spread. So they're looking at it from a very, you know, detailed perspective. So, you know, we took we took their suggestions and we have implemented them, but that just demonstrates to you the level of detail that the Department of Health is involved in helping to guide us. I will also tell you some great news. We had an employee who tested positive in the culinary department in Water's Edge. And that was I believe that was the first one I reported to you. And I am happy to tell you that she is fully recovered, never had any symptoms, and is headed back to work. So what that means, just for those of you who are interested, what that means is in order for somebody to return back to work after they have been positive, they have to have, they get tested on the 11th day or 10th day, and they have to have 2 negative tests. They have to be retested twice, and both of them have to be negative, and they have to be separated with at least 24 hours in between them. So we are so very excited to be able to have this employee come back to work as our first recovered employee. So that is the good news. Let's see here. A couple of other really great things. Now I got a lot of pushback on Mr. Softy. Oh, I'm glad you're laughing, Meryl.
Yeah.
I got a lot of pushback on Mr. Well, I say a lot of pushback, but okay, I won't embellish. There were probably 3 or 4 phone calls, but I know there are more people. Listen, I recognize that that was a very fun activity and it's important to you. And I just really felt that with everything going on around us and then the increased number of cases at Sandhill Cove, I felt the best thing that we could do is to stop that. And you know, there's always something good coming from something that may be a bit of a challenge. And so Phyllis proposed to me yesterday that we buy a commercial grade soft ice cream machines. She brought that to my attention. I have spoken, now that's an unbudgeted item, but I know that that's very, very important to our residents. So guess what I did yesterday? I called Bob Forbush, our finance committee chair, and I said, hey, Bob, I want to buy a soft ice cream machine for the residents. I know it's not budgeted and it's only 1,800, but you know, am I going to get any pushback from the finance committee? And he said, Sean, go for it. So that is in the works, and you know, the details on that will be forthcoming. Although it is on wheels and technically we could wheel it around, I'm thinking that what we'll do is we'll put it in a central location and then just have you know, people come down and get their soft ice cream that way. So I'm excited about that. I love ice cream myself. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll get that up and going. But in the meantime, we'll make sure that we give you some opportunity to have an ice cream treat. So that is the good news. So even after this is all over, we'll have a soft ice cream machine. So that's awesome. And you know, Meryl and I were talking, and I am just so incredibly grateful for all of you. And I do not want to minimize the challenges that you've experienced and the frustrations and the depression and the anxiety and the boredom and the loneliness and all of that over the past several months. But as I think about today being July 1st, I cannot believe that we are headed into the second half of this year, with these last 3 months being just so incredibly hard. And when I say difficult and hard, I recognize the fact that you are still paying your monthly service fees, and there for a while, your services were delayed or they were reduced. I get it. And I will tell you this, that it has been a challenge. And as I think about those services that we have been able to restore, you know, I'm reminded of some of the services that we've actually even implemented, like the bank runs and the concierge grocery shopping, grocery shopping, you know, the continued meals that we provide you on a day-to-day basis. The housekeeping services, yes, they were stopped for a period of time, and then we restored them and we went to weekly, and now we had to back off to every other week. And we had to back off to the every other week service because it is just monumental. There are so many needs, and I know that you're saying, well, you know, but my contract says I'm due for a housekeeping cleaning every single week, and it does. The reality is that we have to shift our resources to be able to keep you safe and secure in other ways too. So right now, that is why we have reduced or rolled back the housekeeping services to every 2 weeks. I will tell you this, I did get a call yesterday, and I've gotten a couple of emails from people who can't make their bed. And so if you need assistance making your bed, let us know, let Jim know. We will do everything in our power to send somebody over and help you make your bed. We don't want anyone doing anything that's going to put them at harm's risk. Your safety and security continues to be our #1 priority. So please contact me, and I will help to funnel that over to environmental services and get you taken care of. But as I continue to think about the restoration of services, I think about the fitness room and what Dana and Jane are doing, and the transportation to medically essential appointments. And here's one that oftentimes you may forget, I forget, because you're not really needing it or using it every day, and that's access to our nurses in the healthcare center 24 hours a day. So in the event that you had an emergency, our nursing staff is still here to respond and provide whatever services you need at that time of your emergency. The pool, you know, the pool actually never shut down. Yes, it was on limited use, but you know, it's been expanded, and so the pool, the library has remained open. So and now we're allowed to do some small outdoor group activities, and I even see Maria Campbell in a group in the clubhouse doing some Tai Chi. So there are some small group activities, and then most recently adding the lunch option. So although the services are maybe different and delivered and look differently, we are trying to keep as much, bring as much normalcy to the delivery of those services as possible. And we will continue to do that. And as numbers flatten, as the curve flattens, we will continue to evaluate. But as I said last week, we are hitting pause on moving forward. I just cannot justify moving forward with anything else as far as opening or adding additional services. I think the babies in the background are getting hungry. Can you hear them? Hear them? Yeah. It's probably lunchtime for them. So I think that's it on my agenda. Meryl, I'm going to send it over to you and have you share some words of wisdom there.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a little different tack. I've decided that I'm going to emulate a first responder today, and I think I'm going to run into the fire today instead of trying to run away from it. I'm going to talk a little bit about food and food service, just to bring us up to date on how I view that. As we mentioned, we've been dealing with the food on a brown bag home delivery basis since, I think it's March 19th that we started the first brown bags. So since then, as Sean mentioned earlier, Martin County's gone from 0 positive cases to 2,055 and 25 deaths. So we really don't have a big choice right now but to continue our in-home brown bag service. And I know all of us are tired of this routine. Okay, we'd all love to get back to the dining room, but just right now with things so hot on the outside, we really can't do that. But for some of us, this frustration of not being able to go to the dining room has led to a series of complaints aimed at management at all levels. Now, others have made suggestions on how to improve the food service. The main meal menu has been expanded quite a bit. I think we started with about 5 entrees listed. Today, I think we may have added one. We were up to 9 entrees that were offered for tonight. Plus, the three days a week, we offer a special whole meal themed to different countries and food types. And now we've got the grab and go lunches that are available. And you can either take that as a replacement for your main meal, or you can take that as an add-on. So we've got a lot of different choices as far as the meal service goes. But the question still remains, how do we make the brown bag meals even more acceptable going forward? Now, first, I believe there are 3 factors we ought to keep in mind anytime we assess our brown bag service. First, what we're facing is far from normal, as I guess we all know, but we may tend to forget sometimes. So our criteria for evaluating those brown bag meals has to be a little different than they would be when we're talking about the dining room. Secondly, nobody likes the effects of this current crisis, whether it's the residents or the employees. Everybody can't stand it. Everybody would like to get back to normal and go back to the dining room. And thirdly, before we yell too much, I would urge everybody to take a step back and really take a breath before you decide to do that. Then if you decide you want to go forward with debates and so forth, let's go for it. Now, since March 19th, we've had 104 days of brown bag dinners. If you assume we have about 270 apartments a time to service, and forgetting about the fact that some of those have 2 people in them, that's still more than 28,000 dinners that we've served since March 19th. Now, of course, the 28,000 meals are not all equally good. We recognize that. From one day to the next, choices change, preparation changes, delivery changes. What you get varies by day, as it would in any restaurant. The big difference here is it's magnified quite a bit by the fact of how we have to deliver those brown bags to your apartment, and then they have to be reheated sometimes and other things like that that you wouldn't get in a normal restaurant. Now, like everybody else, my happiness meter shows different results depending on what gets served. And if the deviation is large enough, I sometimes will send an email to Jim Rondinelli and let him know about that. But I not only tell him when something doesn't seem so good, I tell him when something seems to be great. And I think that's important, that you don't just think about what's wrong with the meals, but when something comes out really terrific, tell them it's really terrific. Okay, I think that's the way to handle that. Now, I've had a few doozies in the offering here. I still remember about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I ordered a bistro burger. The dinner arrived, and there was my styrofoam container with burger written on the outside. So I opened it up, and I found inside, I found a very nice hot hamburger bun. I found a slice of tomato. I found a leaf of green lettuce, but I did not find a hamburger. So I had everything but what I was supposed to have. Unfortunately, it was 6:35. I grabbed the phone, I called down to try to let somebody know about my dilemma. And unfortunately, people had left because it was past the 6:30 deadline. And so I had Cheerios for dinner that night. But so things don't always go perfectly, but more often than not. I've also seen more cauliflower than I'd like. I'm not a big cauliflower person. And I think I've seen less rare ahi tuna than I would like. I'd love to have that anytime. So sometimes the entree gets overcooked and sometimes it's just right. Last night, I had a perfect filet mignon, so I promptly wrote an email to Jim last night just to tell him, which I think is important. Okay, so in sum, I realize that the brown bag dinner service has been uneven. When you have a real problem or a suggestion on how to make the service better, please let somebody know. But at the same time, please don't harangue the staff with a truckload of complaints every day, because you can't beat these folks into a status of excellence. It just won't happen. So just take your time, make them count. And any time that you assess the brown bag service, please remember these things. There's nothing normal about our current mode of operation. So it's a different set of things altogether. Nobody is happy about this. Residents aren't happy. Employees aren't happy. We all want this to change as soon as possible, and as soon as it's allowable, I'm sure we will change. And lastly, before you scream about something that's awful, take a step back, take a breath, and realize that that breath is one that 127,000 Americans can no longer take because of COVID-19. That's my story, Sean.
Wow. Thank you, Merrill. You know, I'm sorry about that beef patty that you didn't get with your lettuce and tomato, and you know, it's truly amazing when I look at the culinary staff, and putting out, you know, 250 meals, and you know, there's bound to be errors and so forth. One of the things that Jim and I have talked about actually just last night is we did receive, I did receive some feedback about the portion sizes. And I think earlier on there was some concern. There was not enough greens. There were not enough greens and vegetables going out. And so I feel like they have corrected that, but now the feedback that we're getting that is that there's too much food and double, you know, and the carbs.
Wow. I don't hear anything. Can't hear a thing. I can't hear you. Maybe everybody else can.
I can hear you.
There you go. Now you're back.
Okay. Okay. Let me see here. Did I just get a, let me just check my phone to see if I'm being informed that, okay. I was thinking that maybe Audra was texting me, telling me that you couldn't hear me. So where did I lose you, Merrill?
Well, you talked about the fact that you and Jim had been discussing portion size because we'd received an email and you were going on from there.
Yeah. So yeah, so what Jim is going to be doing is he's working through the details of on the menu to add like maybe a smaller portion versus a larger portion. So hopefully, you know, we'll be able to pull that out here shortly. And then, you know, Merrill, you know, you talked about the breath and, you know, 127,000 people not being able to, you know, not having a breath to take. And, you know, I thank you for that. I need to hear that because in the thick of the day and knowing that there's challenges and that residents may not be feeling as good or, you know, just feeling like they're in prison or what have you, I need to hear that because it does help me to keep into perspective what really is going on. And this is truly just a moment in time, although it's been a long moment in time. You know, we just need to continue to hunker down. And again, folks, I will just say to you, use the services that we have put into place, or if you choose to go out, understand that you must have a mask on and that you are paying attention to your hands, paying attention to making sure that the mask is up over your nose. It does no good to just have it covering your mouth. Having it over your nose and mouth is equally important, especially when you're out and about, you know, out, well, anywhere out and about, but really, really important because that's how this is spreading. And people who are perfectly fine, showing no symptoms, are the ones who are spreading this. So we are continuing to test all of our Water's Edge staff. We have tested all of our independent living housekeepers, our culinary staff, maintenance staff, environmental services staff, and you know, we did have, I reported this, we did have a positive employee come back in the culinary department through the contact tracing. There was very little risk. And of course, that was all reported to the Department of Health for follow-up. So You know, I will close this out by just saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I wish you all just the remembrance of the 4th of July and the independence that we have here in the United States. Despite all of the challenges that we are currently being faced with, there still is so much to be grateful for. And I am certainly grateful for you, your support, and your continued commitment to help us as a community get through this. So no small task, but together we can certainly do it. So with that, I'm going to sign off and wish you all a great rest of your day and a nice weekend. And
Happy 4th.
yep, happy 4th. Ciao for now.
Yep.